A very good morning to you. With the news at this time, I am Deanna Jordan. The news comes to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories. To begin the news, here's a look at the leads. An inquiry into the sinking of a trawler more than 1 month ago has found several lapses. The Alliance for Change wants fertilizer to be subsidized. In regional news, Antigua and Barbuda wants the Sub-Regional Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to take a united position against Europe's virtual outlaw of purchased citizenships. The leader of Trinidad and Tobago's opposition United National Congress may be challenged for her post at her party's next internal elections. For the international news, we'll bring to you the latest news bulletin from the BBC World Service. The details will be coming up in just a moment.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Eureka Labs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
And now the news in detail. Public Works Minister Juan Edgell says an inquiry has found that the captain of the trawler that sank several weeks ago had informed Noble House Seafoods that the vessel had been taking in water. However, Mr. Edgell says that Noble House never reported the occurrence until 9 hours later. Not licensed, and he and his crew were not trained in safety measures. He said the inquiry found that a fake license had been produced by the now deceased captain to Noble House Seafoods. The Public Works Minister said the report of the Board of Inquiry's investigation into the marine incident involving a trawler World Friend 307 on February 19, 2022 would be made public and provided to the families of the 3 deceased persons. According to Mr. Edgell, there was no evidence that a certified marine surveyor surveyed that boat and said that this was worthy for sea. Mr. Edgell said once culpability or negligence is established, Attorney General Anil Nandlal would be asked to advise on compensation. He said the captains work on a freelance basis with fishing companies. Director General of the Maritime Administration, Stephen Thomas, said if the company had notified the authorities that the trawler had been in distress, nearby vessels could have responded to a mayday call or the lighthouse for help. The Alliance for Change AFC is calling on the government to subsidize the price of fertilizer. That political party, which is part of the wider opposition coalition, says the state-owned Guyana Rice Development Board should reduce the levy to zero. The levy was previously $8 per ton, but now it is $6. The AFC also says that monies accumulated over the years from the levy should be used by the government to subsidize the price of fertilizer. If that is not sufficient, that political party is also recommending that some of the oil revenues be used to subsidize the fertilizer price. The Guyana government has already decided to subsidize electricity and water bills, although the operational costs of the Guyana Water Inc. and Guyana Power and Light have increased due to the rise in the price of fuel. The government has also reduced all taxes on fuel to zero in an effort to reduce the price at the pumps. The Guyana Elections Commission, GECOM, says none of its workers is visiting homes. That electoral management body says it is not engaged in any such exercise and no one has been authorized to collect information from anyone through house-to-house visits. People's Progressive Party activists have been visiting houses in several areas to verify that persons on the registration list are still living at the stated addresses. GCOM explains that registration staff and scrutineers are required to visit the given residential addresses of applicants for registration to verify that the concerned persons actually live at the addresses they would have provided. The electoral management body says such visits are made only after agreement between the applicant and the concerned GCOM staff would have agreed on a date and time. 7 graduate engineers hired by SBM Offshore have arrived in Singapore for hands-on training on the Prosperity floating production, storage, and offloading vessel. That vessel is being constructed to support the Payara development in the Stabroek Block offshore Guyana. The 5 men and the 2 women arrived in Singapore on Monday. In August last year, they traveled to the Netherlands, where they spent 6 months undergoing training in different areas, while also working with the team designing the vessel. The graduate engineers returned to Guyana in February before the final stint of training. They were recruited from the University of Guyana in 2021 after undergoing a rigorous vetting process. SBM Offshore has said it intends to repeat the program given how well it has been going and the clear benefits being derived. At the conclusion of the 18-month program, the graduates are to be fully immersed in the company's Guyana operations in roles that they are firstly most interested in and secondly, which fit their background and areas of training. And now for the regional news. Jamaica's Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, has served notice to the visiting Duke and Duchess of Cambridge that Jamaica intends to break ties with the British monarchy. He says Jamaica intends to attain and fulfill its true ambitions as an independent, developed, and prosperous country in short order. Holness's notice that Jamaica will remove the Queen as head of state and become a republic comes 4 months after Barbados officially took the step. Their Royal Highnesses arrived in Jamaica on Tuesday for a 3-day official visit to the island as part of activities to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee of Her Majesty the Queen. This year marks 70 years since the Queen's ascension to the throne. Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Browne has called on the member countries of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, to provide a united front in a bid to stave off efforts by the European Union to derail the controversial Citizenship by Investment Program, CBI. Under the CBI, foreign investors are afforded citizenship of a country in return for making a significant investment in the socio-economic development of a particular country. Several Caribbean countries have instituted CBI programs. Speaking during a webinar on the topic Fight or Flight, the Future of Citizenship by Investment, the Antigua and Barbuda leader acknowledged that there was some risk in selling citizenships. However, he said, so far there was no evidence that anyone has used CBI programs from any of the Eastern Caribbean member states to commit terrorism or launder money at the scale of what is happening in North America and Europe. The United States has moved to decline visas to holders of passports obtained by the CBI, and the European Union has passed a law giving countries 3 years to phase out the program or face visa requirements for all its passport holders. The EU Parliament has called for an EU levy of a meaningful percentage on the investments made until golden passports are phased out and indefinitely for golden visas within the bloc. The resolution passed by the parliament with 595 votes to 12 and 74 abstentions says golden passports should be phased out fully. Brown told the debate that the smaller countries are being targeted by the bigger countries that have been offering similar type CBI programs. And now in Trinidad, an Opposition United National Congress UNC parliamentarian is not ruling out the possibility of challenging Kamla Persad Bissessar for that party's leadership whenever the next internal elections are held. Trinidad Newsday reports that he left this possibility open while speaking with reporters. In the past, the UNC and PNM have put their respective internal elections on hold in years when a general or local election is taking place. Monilal did not say whether he would contest the next UNC internal election as part of a slate led by Persad Bissessar, lead another slate against her, or be part of a rival slate led by someone else. In the last UNC internal election in December 2020, Persad Bissessar's slate scored a landslide victory over a slate led by former government minister Vasant Bharat. Article 18 of the UNC's constitution says that party's political leader serves for a 3-year period and all other members of the UNC's national executive serve for 2 years, unless they resign or are removed from office before their tenure ends. Executive members remain in office until their successors are elected. This means Persad Bissessar's term of office as UNC political leader will end in December 2023 unless internal elections are held before that time. Party sources said internal elections are due around December. And now for the international news, here's the latest bulletin from the BBC World Service.
BBC News. Hello, this is Jerry Smith. The United States and the European Union are about to announce a major deal on liquefied natural gas in an attempt to reduce Europe's reliance on Russian energy. The agreement would see Washington provide the EU with at least 15 billion additional cubic metres of the fuel, known as LNG, by the end of the year. Jessica Parker is in Brussels.
The EU is trying to quell its addiction to Russian energy. According to the International Energy Agency, it imported 155 billion cubic metres of natural gas from Russia in 2021. The EU's plans include investing in renewables and diversifying supplies to ship more liquefied natural gas from America to Europe. It isn't the cheapest way to get energy, but Russia is no longer regarded as a reliable or desirable source.
Later today, President Biden will travel to Poland from Brussels, where he'll meet refugees who've escaped the war. He'll visit a town about 80 kilometres from the Ukrainian border with his Polish counterpart Andrzej Duda. Mr. Biden has pledged $1 billion in humanitarian aid for those caught up in the conflict. Poland has accepted more than 2 million people fleeing Ukraine, far more than any other country. Russia says it has destroyed Ukraine's largest military fuel depot near Kyiv. A Russian spokesman said the attack, using sea-launched missiles, took place last night. Elsewhere, the Ukrainian authorities say a military unit near the city of Dnipro has been hit by 2 Russian missiles. Rescue workers are searching for survivors in the rubble. Ukraine's armed forces say they're continuing combat operations across the country. Our correspondent in Kyiv, James Waterhouse, says the situation is different in the capital itself.
This is the first morning we can remember where it has been quiet. There is no artillery fire this morning. Ukrainian forces are thought to be starting to encircle invading troops on western towns like Irpin and Bucha. And because of the pressure the Russians find themselves under, they're now unable to both surround Kyiv and the Chernihiv region to the north. So it's an ever-changing picture, but the question marks remain on what Russia Vladimir Putin is willing to do next in order to reignite his campaign.
James Waterhouse. The former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has dismissed Western sanctions as stupid. He told a state-owned news agency that the measures imposed since the invasion of Ukraine served only to consolidate support for the government. He said history showed that restrictions and hardship had the effect of uniting the Russian people, not dividing them. The sanctions have undermined the value of the ruble, prompted large numbers of job losses, and largely closed the Moscow Stock Exchange. World News from the BBC. Heads of state from the West African regional group ECOWAS are due to meet in Ghana today to discuss the political situation in Mali following last year's coup. Mali's interim president, Assimi Goïta, has declined an invitation to attend in person. In January, West African countries closed their borders with Mali and announced an embargo after the military leadership scrapped a promise to hold elections the following month to restore civilian rule. Australia says it's opposed to China building a military base in the Solomon Islands as Beijing seeks to extend its influence in the Pacific. Michael Bristow reports.
On Thursday, a draft document was leaked on social media suggesting China wants to establish a naval base in the Solomon Islands. Even though it's not given full details, the government in Honiara has now confirmed that it is in talks with Beijing about security issues. Australia considers the Solomon Islands to be part of its own backyard and has reacted with alarm. Its international development minister said there was no place in the Pacific for an authoritarian regime, and an Australian Foreign Ministry statement said a Chinese military base could destabilise the region.
The European Union has finalised the details of a landmark new law to control the activities of technology giants such as Google, Meta and Apple. Agreement was reached between the European Parliament and Member States on the Digital Markets Act after more than a year of talks. The law would force Apple to offer an alternative to its own App Store on its devices, and Google would be prevented from automatically preloading its search engine on Android phones. Britain's National Weather Service, the Met Office, has thanked volunteers who've helped to digitise more than 60,000 pages of handwritten rainfall records. The agency appealed for people to take part in the project as the UK's first COVID lockdown began. BBC News.
The news was brought to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories.
A COVID-19 PCR test is now mandatory for many routine activities, including travel and return to work purposes. At Eureka, our trained and experienced staff will ensure confidentiality while your test is conducted in a professional and timely manner, with results in just 48 hours. So the next time you require an efficient and hassle-free PCR COVID-19 test, call 624-8378, 608-8378, or 623-7233 to schedule your appointment. You can also ask about our house call testing service.
Here now is a recap of the leads. An inquiry into the sinking of a trawler more than 1 month ago has found several lapses. The Alliance for Change wants fertilizer to be subsidized. Regionally, Antigua and Barbuda wants the Sub-Regional Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to take a united position against Europe's virtual outlaw of purchased citizenships. The leader of Trinidad and Tobago's opposition United National Congress may be challenged for her post at her party's next internal elections. And that's the end of the news.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.